if there are going to be reparations, this group is the most deserving. So I want you to see the nonsense here. I want you to see the nonsense here. I want you to see what this person is saying, right? I've heard, listen, I want to see who is this writer? Who is this? Who wrote this? I want you to see this, right? By Caitlin Mayer in Klein Village. So this person is saying that black people don't deserve reparations more so than another group. So who is this other group that she's talking about? This comes from the San Francisco Chronicle, right? I've heard arguments for and against reparations of some sort for African Americans who suffered 400 years of slavery and discrimination. Treatment of African Americans has been abominable in our country, and that must change. However, there's a group of people who have had everything taken from them from the day Europeans arrived on our shores. The Native American tribes have suffered the loss of land, lives, language, and culture. So I want you to see that, right? This person is trying to say that Native American tribes who already get reservations deserve reparations more than we do. Let me show you the problem with that, right? Whenever you hear this argument, I'm going to bring up a Google search tab, and I want to show you why that's a problem. I want to show you what you can show people whenever they make this claim. This comes from Smithsonian Magazine. I want you to see this, right? How Native American slave owners complicate the Trail of Tears narrative. The new exhibition, Americans at the National Museum of the American Indian, prompts a deeper dive for historic truths. It's written in 2018 by Ryan P. Smith. When you think of the Trail of Tears, you likely imagine a lone procession of suffering Cherokee Indians forced westward by a villainous Andrew Jackson. Perhaps you envision unscrupulous white slave owners whose interest in growing a plantation economy underlay the decision to expel the Cherokee, flooding in to take their place east of the Mississippi River. What you probably don't picture are Cherokee slaveholders, foremost among them Cherokee Chief John Ross. What you probably don't picture are the numerous African American slaves Cherokee owned who made the brutal march themselves, or else were actually shipped en masse to what is now Oklahoma aboard cramped boats by their wealthy Indian masters. And what you may not know is that the federal policy of Indian removal, which ranged far beyond the Trail of Tears and the Cherokee, was not simply the vindictive scheme of Andrew Jackson, but rather a properly endorsed, congressionally sanctioned campaign spanning the administrations of 9 separate presidents. These uncomfortable complications in the narrative were brought to the forefront at a recent event held at the National Museum of the American Indian. Titled Finding Common Ground, the symposium offered a deep dive into intersectional African American and Native American history. For museum curator Paul Chat Smith Comanche, who has overseen the design and opening of the widely lauded Americans exhibit, now on view on the museum's 3rd floor, it is imperative to provide the museum-going public with an unflinching history, even when doing so is painful. Here's a picture of John Ross. John Ross, the Cherokee chief lionized for his efforts to fight forced relocation, was also an advocate and practitioner of slavery. Right? Quote, "I used to like history," end quote, Smith told the crowd ruefully, quote, "and sometimes I still do, but not most of the time. Most of the time, history and I are frenemies at best," end quote. In the case of the Trail of Tears and the enslavement of blacks by prominent members of all 5 so-called civilized tribes, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole, Smith went one step further, likening the ugly truth of history to a, quote, "mangy, snarly dog," standing between you and a crowd-pleasing narrative, end quote. Oh. Quote, obviously, the history needs to be that the enslavement black people and soon to be exiled red people would join forces and defeat their oppressor, end quote. But such was not the case. Far from it. But such was not the case. Far from it. Quote, the 5 civilized tribes, Native Americans, Indians, the red Native Americans, were deeply committed to slavery, established their own racialized black codes, immediately reestablished slavery when they arrived in Indian territory, rebuilt their nations with slave labor, crushed slave rebellions, and enthusiastically sided with the Confederacy in the Civil War, end quote. Wow. So when this person says Native Americans deserve reparations more than foundational black Americans or the black natives or the black natives, the actual black natives, the actual Native Americans, when they say that we don't deserve reparations, they're saying that our people shouldn't be compensated for Native Americans even owning us as slaves. Even Native Americans haven't even paid us reparations yet, even though they said that they actually would. They made treaties. So I want you to understand when someone's writing an anti-black hit piece or an anti-black opinion piece and trying to insult you in a way whereas they can give themselves an out. An out by, they can give themselves an out by saying, hey, I'm only asking questions. I'm just writing an opinion piece. I'm not attacking black people. I'm just saying that, hey, these people deserve reparations too. Or they deserve it more so than you. Even though reparations are for slavery, which Native Americans had us enslaved even longer than the white people. Because even after the 13th Amendment came along, Native Americans did not respect federal law. So there were deals that was established just to free us from Native Americans. From the so-called red natives. Yeah, them. We're the actual natives here on these lands. We all know that. That's why some of the practices you find from the African continent and practices here, especially with some of the animism, shamanism, some of the religions, some of the languages, even some of the culture and some of the food, even some of the hunting, even some of the progression in technology. We know it comes from Africa. We know, the cradle of life is Africa. That's why it seems so similar. Even though the red natives here enslaved foundational black Americans or the black descendants of American slaves, this person is saying those same people deserve reparations over us. Black folks, I want you to understand when someone's insulting you right to your face. That's an insult. That's an insult. And anyone can see it. No, you don't give reparations to people for slavery, for historical hardships, when these people already have reservations and we don't. They already get tax dollars and we don't. They already get health care and we don't. They already have their own police force and we don't. When they had us as slaves. It don't work that way, son. It don't work that way.